A lot of people think that I am anti-marriage because of the way I sign off all my videos with stay healthy and if you can, stay single. And that's not necessarily true. I am more anti-stupid. And just so happens there's an awful lot of overlapping behavior between stupidity and marriage. I have a friend who has been separated now for about 7 or 8 months. He was in a long marriage. He's like 50 years old. I think he's a 7-figure guy. His soon-to-be ex-wife is just as financially successful as he is, so there's no splitting that's going to be painful to anybody. But within a couple months of moving out of his old house, he was on the apps and got a girlfriend. She's a government employee, not a 7-figure girl. Now, apparently she's a ton of fun, you know, just like all new girlfriends are. Lots of sex, lots of smiles, lots of fun. The problem with relationships like that is they need to progress, you know? There is no static nature to that relationship. It must continue to grow. And inevitably that growth leads to, eventually, when are we going to get married? And that's what I want to talk about today. Is why on earth would anyone get involved with a second marriage? Or worse yet, a third marriage? The stats just don't bear it out. This is Life 2.0. Let's talk about it. When I say stupidity, I'm not being flip. I'm not just blowing something up. We all know the basic stats of how the average marriage has a 50% success rate or divorce rate. Well, the second marriage, divorces occur 2/3 of the time. And in third marriages, it's up to like 75% of the time. You can see the pattern here. It's not getting better. So whatever went wrong that first time is still there the second time for most people. And it's definitely still there the third time. Now, I'm not sure if these divorce statistics include people who die. I've got a feeling that a lot of people just die in that second or third marriage, so they don't get divorced, but they get out of it anyway. So as I'm hanging out with my friend, and he's talking about all the sexual exploits he's been having and how much fun it's been, all I can think of in the back of my mind is, man, she is working it. She's working it. She sees your lifestyle, you know, like he jets off to see football games all over the country on no notice. He's got 2 kids and very expensive colleges. He's got a good life. He's got a great life. Any woman would enjoy hanging out with this guy. He's got a great personality. He's relatively good looking, I guess, as one man can declare for another man. He's got a business that's just cranking away tons and tons of money. And he's kind of vulnerable because he's been in a bad marriage for a long time, you know? His ex-wife and he had not had a lot of intimacy for a very long time. So this surge of sex is definitely an eye-opener for him. Comes into gym all the time to work out and he's got these big smiles on his face. He's tired. He wants to do some back exercises so he can build his stamina. But man, I can tell the writing is on the wall here, man. Albert Einstein said that doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is by definition insanity. So what makes you think that getting married again is going to turn things are going to turn out differently? And people say, well, I'm picking out a different kind of girl this time. I'm going to do more due diligence. I'm going to do this and this. It's all about her. She's got to be a better human being, and that will absolutely make a difference. She's going to be completely different than my ex-wife. She's going to be much more kind and nurturing and loving and all that stuff. And I think that's really critically important. There's no question about it. But the one thing that most guys fail to do is to turn those fingers around and point them at themselves. It's like if you're a bad driver and you wreck your car, Getting a new car isn't going to improve your driving skills, okay? You're still going to wreck cars. Like, you've got to become a better driver. And the thing that most humans, most people don't realize is that marriage is advanced level adult behavior. It's not for sissies. It's not for amateurs. This is something that you've got to really be in the flow with. Like, you've got to dedicate time, energy, thought, education. I mean, you've got to be in it to win it. You cannot play this game half-cocked. And unfortunately, 90% of people go into this with very little understanding of exactly what they're getting into. It's always that afterglow from the last romp in the sheets. That's when it happens. That's when, you know, when you still got that surge of testosterone and dopamine and a little bit of adrenaline mixed in, and the serotonin is just firing in your brain. That's when you're heading down to the jewelry store to buy that ring. You know, it's like, oh, this is the best thing. I cannot let this girl get out of my sight, man. Cannot let her get out of my sight. This is the best thing that ever happened. This is the girl I should have married to begin with. I'd be so much better off right now. Yeah, fast forward 10 years. You're like, how the fuck did I get into that? What was I thinking? Yeah, insanity. I did a video a couple months ago about how marriage doesn't solve any problems. Second marriages do not solve problems either. Guys think that they're going to fix themselves in some way through this marriage technology, that it's going to cause some kind of a software update within them and they're going to become the man that they always thought they could be. They think that they're going to solve their loneliness problem. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think there's lots and lots of guys in marriages right now who would swear that they are lonelier today than they were before they got married. Except now you're going to be lonely and someone's going to be pissed off about it, you know? You're going to be lonely with someone laying right next to you in bed. You're going to be lonely sitting in front of the TV. And you're going to be thinking, I shouldn't be lonely. I'm paying a price for this. You know, I have paid for companionship. I have done all the things that are necessary to be in a state of happiness and bliss. And yet, I am right back to where I started from. I am still lonely. Yeah, so marriage is not going to fix your loneliness. Think about it. If you're a middle-aged guy, 40s and 50s, you probably have kids from your first wife, your first marriage. Your new wife and your ex-wife are going to hate each other, more than likely. And you're the guy in the middle. But you've got to still talk to that ex-wife because you got to take kids to soccer practice. You got to have all those communications that are necessary between parents. So the ex-wife is not going away. She's still going to be in the picture. And now the new wife is not going to be necessarily happy with it. And if the new wife is young enough that she wants kids herself, oh my God, now you've got two whole complete families. The complications, it's not just multiples, it's exponential. It's exponential complications. So now you've got two whole groups of people who are in competition for your attention, affection, and whatever. There's going to be a hierarchy. There's going to be so many subtle communication issues that are going to occur that are going to upset some people and make other people happy, and they're going to disappoint people, and you're going to cause so many problems in your life through this process. Things are not going to get simple. Things are going to become much, much more complicated. And whatever those problems you had way back when you got married the first time that resulted in that marriage failing, those unresolved childhood traumas, those senses of not being good enough, that scarcity mentality, all those fucked up thoughts you have in your head about who you are and what you are, and most of them subconscious. You don't think this stuff. It's just buried away and under layers of trauma and bad memories. Well, all that shit's going to become very, very real. It's going to rise to the surface because as the stress gets cranked up, man, the brain just feeds you all this good stuff to work with, you know? And I can almost guarantee you that's the reason why second marriages fail 2/3 of the time, because you haven't worked through whatever it was that caused that first marriage to go tits up. And until you figure that out, you've got no business being in any kind of relationship with anybody under any circumstances, especially a marriage. But as I think about my friend who's got this cute girlfriend who's giving him all this exercise on the side, outside of the gym, Yeah, I can see the stars in his eyes. I can see the glow. You know what I mean? It's like right before the the fever breaks, when you can just see the redness in their cheeks. That's where he's at. Where it's just like, ooh, man, it's gonna be a tough one for you, man. I can tell. I have talked at length about the gift of being single. The biggest thing that most guys miss is the opportunity to do some personal development. I mean, it's great that you can set your own schedule and you can have your own hobbies. You can, build something in the garage, maybe learn to play the electric guitar. At 2 a.m. you've got all this freedom to set your own schedule and have your own priorities and all that stuff. And that is, I'm not understating that at all. That is some amazing stuff. It makes your life so much more enjoyable on a day-to-day basis when you're calling your own shots and you are exploring how you would use your time on your own, and to really begin to scratch some of those itches that have been, pushed aside in favor of a relationship in the past. So being single has all that. But the most important thing about being single is it provides you with an opportunity to level up your maturity, your spirituality, your ability to have relationships, your insights, your wisdom, to reflect, understand, see what happened, give it an honest assessment, do your debriefing on this past that has ended you in this situation. You've got to come to an understanding of what your role in it was. Because if you don't figure out how you did this, and she did hers, she did her thing. I'm not even get down that, she can't control that. I don't give a fuck about her. But for you, you've got to do the debriefing and figure out what your role was in it. And you got to maybe, connect some dots for yourself. You got to go back and say, wait a second, where did that behavior come from? Why was I behaving like that? What was it in my past that maybe is buried under some level of, consciousness and trauma that has caused this to pop up and become a thorn in my side as an adult? Why am I acting this way? Because until you can uncover that, until you can figure yourself out and get a sense, just an inkling of what's motivating you, what's driving you, and what is the need to have this woman in your life, then you should not be having a woman in your life. And I would suggest that you're going to need years before you enter into another relationship. For the vast majority of men, I would say, even at this point, I'm out of my relationship now for 6 years, and I am just now starting to fully grasp all the things that happened. And I had the advantage that I have a friendship with my ex-wife, so we have conversations. We do debriefings, joint debriefings. And they don't get ugly, they're just conversations about who did what, when, why, where, whatever. And it allows me to then go back and reflect on those experiences and start to understand more and more about what was happening in our relationship. But if you don't even have that, then you need to get some kind of therapist, you need to get involved, you need to find a way to dig into that and figure out what's going on inside you. Because you're just a ticking time bomb for the next marriage. Like I said, you're driving the car. You wrecked the last car. What makes you think you won't wreck the next car? I'm telling you, you got to take responsibility, you got to own it 100%. And because of that, you've got to go back and figure yourself out. Here's a test you can run on yourself to see if you're ready for marriage. And this is pretty simple. Just imagine that someone came to you from a legal authority, let's say, I don't know, the Trump administration, and said, you can never get remarried again. You can never marry again. The law prohibits you from ever getting married again. Now, do you A, feel relieved, B, feel panicked, or C, don't care? When you can answer truthfully that you don't care one way or the other, now you're ready. If you panic, well, that's obvious. You're using marriage as a crutch. You're using marriage as a way to compensate for something that you're lacking. And that means you need to go back to step one. If it's A and you're like, great, I don't want anyone in my life, well then obviously you don't even want to deal with this shit. Like, you know you've got stuff and you'd rather do something else rather than deal with it. So you're gonna put your efforts toward, developing yourself in other ways. Maybe, having hobbies and enjoying being single. And that's great. It truly is. I mean, you don't need to go down this path of personal development if it's not in your head that you want to have another marriage or a committed relationship. If you're happy being single and you don't want women in your life, build a truck in your garage, learn to play the guitar at 2 a.m. Travel the world, go to Thailand, go to the Philippines, just tear it up, have fun. Have fun. There is no law against it. I completely encourage you to do that. But if you're panicking about that idea, that's a scary one, because now you're like, fuck, if I could never get married again, what am I going to do with my life? That's a problem. If you had that thought, that's problematic. That's your red flag that you need to probably get a therapist so you can start doing some introspection as to the debriefing on your marriage, so that you can grow from it and start to understand where you need to change in order to be the man that's capable of having a long-term committed relationship with a woman. Like I said, this is advanced level adult behavior. This is not for children. This is not for amateurs. This is hardcore stuff. The stakes are high and the risks are real. So don't pretend that you've got this covered, like you've got it under control, because you don't. You've proven that. You've proven it. I remember as a child, someone told me that you really can't love someone else until you love yourself. And that was really a mind fuck for me as a kid. I didn't fully understand that at all. I remember dwelling on that for a while. Maybe I was like a teenager or something like that. And after a while, I just gave up on that thought because it was just too confusing. Like, love yourself? What are you talking about? Like, I don't understand that. How do you love yourself? Well, I finally have kind of gotten my head around that concept now. It's more than, it's not just like some kind of, affection for yourself. It's not like that. It's more like you love the person that you've become. You love your life. You love the things that you do. You love your activities. You love even your own flaws, You own your life completely, and you feel at home with yourself. You feel comfortable in your own skin. You're not concerned about other people's opinions about you. That you're comfortable being alone, and you're comfortable around other people, around even women that you might be romantically inclined with. And you don't lose yourself in an effort to win someone else's affections, because you realize that you're bringing a lot to the table no matter what. And if she responds to it and she sees that you're someone that she wants to have in her life, she will. And if she doesn't, it's her loss and you don't care. You're ready to move on to the next one. You're not clinging to something outside of you in order to feel like you're a complete human being. When you get to that point, I'm going to state that again because that's so critical. When you no longer feel like you need something outside of yourself or someone outside of yourself to feel like a complete human being, then you're ready. That's when you're there. But if you're going through your life thinking, I would be happy only if I had someone else, I would be better. If I had a girl in my life or a woman in my life, I would be better. If you're having those thoughts, then you're not ready. It's when you don't care and it's like, I'm good either way, that's when you're in the right frame of mind. That's when you can do it. All right, you guys, that's all I got for you today. I certainly hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe. If you know someone who is going through this process of considering second marriage, please share this video with them. I think it's something on the order of like 40 million people get married the second time. and 2/3 of them are literally walking off a plank, into the marital abyss, the abyss of divorce lawyers and splitting assets and emotional explosions in their lives. Don't let your friends do that. Friends don't let their friends get married. Anyway, Till next time, stay healthy, and if you can, stay single.